Crunchy on the outside, gooey on the inside.
Welcome back, everyone. It's been too long. Rock and stone. Time to clean off the old silicone pastry mat here. My new favorite surface. Just takes a little bit of IPA rubbing alcohol and you're good to go again. So this is episode 17. We're going to do just the models out of the core expansion box first. And then we'll branch out into some of the little additional extras I got. I did the all-in deluxe, whatever it was. I got everything with this last Deep Rock expansion series. I primed this guy up gray. This is a resin print model for the record, not the actual one out of the box. So you might see some slight flaws or inconsistencies with the resin print. This is going to be my usual format for these videos in this series. There's probably going to be some bad music. There's going to be coverage of my basic painting approach and formulas to the colors, my usual rambling, and some experiments to share along the way. Bookmarks in the description for those who just want quick details. I hope these videos will help you come up with your own ideas on how to paint up these wonderful miniatures that came with this board game. If you find this series useful, please, as always, consider a like or subscribe and help me keep growing the channel. Creeping a little closer to 500 this week, so every little bit helps. I do a good solid dry brushing, some gray matter beige, and then some white. I really try to catch those edges of the shell on the back and some of those other protrusions. I come back with a brush and also kind of lighten those up a little more too to make sure it's properly set up for a good coat of some speed paint here shortly. Not the cleanest, there's some texture with the white paint from my dry brushing. I'm not the best at it. Now here's some of the video game pictures. I made the assumption that this is the adult version of the Shellback. There's a youngling one that's like a whitish color, I think, in the game. And then the adult is like a blackish blue shell. And it has a lot of orange and pinks and yellow kind of colors going on in its fleshy bits. So I took some artistic liberties here and decided where I wanted what. I went through and made sure all those kind of the bulbous round fleshy bits on the sides there, I wanted to make sure those had good white coatings on the peaks and domes. So here was my first attempt on the right, and you can see it's kind of came out a dull, darker orange, and that is a result of Zealot Yellow over one of my new favorite colors, Aged Hide. Now here's another variation. This was my Seahawk Green version. Similar color scheme, Aged Hide for the gums there. I think I did pallid bone on those teeth. But of the two, I liked the orange better, but I wanted it to pop a bit more. For the shell, I went 3 parts Grim Black, 1 part Tyrian Navy, and 1 part Speedpaint Medium 2.0. These are all the 2.0 versions of the Speedpaint for this part. I tried to apply these much like a glaze, not flooding the model, trying to avoid those staining spots on the large flat shell surfaces, but still get some of the contrast effect. I also hit the legs here, all the way down to kind of the hooked foot part there. That's going to be in a different color. Hindsight, I probably should have done those little ripply triple rings there on the bottom of the leg, something different too. Maybe I have to go back and hit those. Any spot I spilled over the blue paint, of course, got to go back and clean that up if you're going to use your contrast paints. For the feet, Grim Black and Satchel Brown in a 1-to-1 ratio. I imagine Darkwood would be fine. So the mouth area here, I want to get the gums, the center mouth, that outer part of the gum lines, those bulbous pustules as well along the side, the bulbous fleshy bits, the antennas. I'm hitting all of this with one of my new favorite colors when working with yellow, which is Aged Hide. And I'm going to mix that at 2-to-1 with some Speedpaint medium. Now this is a yellow pink per the bottle, so it incorporates, a pretty warm, fleshy color to it, right? It's almost that peachy, fleshy color. Now I'm not worried about the teeth or anything else right now. I'm just getting a good solid layer of this all throughout. You know how easy it is to go back after the fact, and we can whiten those teeth back up and do a different color, things like that. Now it's worth noting on the sides, I tried to do this part pretty quick, because you'll see here in a moment, the first experiment requires me removing some of the Aged Hide I just put on. There's a method to my madness here though, bear with me. So I've been on a quest, since I swore I'd revise the Driller episode last year, to find some different ways to do yellow better. So you see here, I'm brushing back off with a wet brush, removing kind of the areas where you would expect the light to hit more, the areas you want to be brighter. I'm just extracting off that Aged Hide now. Wet brush and paper towel works pretty good. Swipe off a bit, wipe on a paper towel, come back and more with a wet brush. Now we're going to go back over that in a second here with some Zealot Yellow. 1.0 too, not the new version. So another experiment. Because if you don't know, which I didn't until last year, thank you YouTubes, using various shades of pink as an undercoat creates your shadows, your recess shading and such when you're painting with yellow. I'm always excited though to find a way to glaze over a different color with a speed paint color and create an effect, like in this case the shading, without having to then go back and do an extra step like a wash and then re-highlighting again. So now you can kind of see where I try to do this here. This is Mr. Hideous, but you can see down in those grooves in the armor and such, around the bolts, different things, orangish yellow shadowing. And then here it is when you don't have that, and it's kind of like, well, I'd have to go back in with what, a wash, something like that to darken those up. So it takes care of the work for you. Now here's one I tried to do in acrylic for a reshoot video. That one I had to use wash to get down those cracks. So the second experiment was using version 1, Zealot Yellow, with Speedpaint Medium 2.0 to see if I could subdue some of the old reactivation issues we had. Not to say I dislike the reactivation, in some cases it's very useful. So you can see here, a little did come off, but that was a very wet brush, very aggressive. If that were just straight up 1.0 and you have that experience with it, that would have stripped those, those domes would have been white, right? It would have stripped it right off. So we're going to go ahead and do that. 2 parts Zealot Yellow, version 1, and 1 part Speedpaint Medium 2.0, because I got a lot of the Speedpaint 1.0 stuff I want to use up. Color-wise and consistency-wise, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the 1.0 version as far as I'm concerned. It looks great. So, I've probably got 3 bottles of Zealot Yellow to go through still. You can see here how much brighter that is because I brushed back off that aged hide, right? I won't lie, I was pretty damn happy at this point on how this was coming out. Mission successful, I'd say, on this little experiment overall. I did try to leave the tail and the bulbs on those antennas pretty much pure white because they are kind of glowing, I guess, in the game photos. So I want those to be extra bright. No, I'm not brave enough to dance with OSL or any of that stuff. One day, though. Then I also hit that center crack in the mouth there. It kind of had a different bright color in the game photo as well. So, trying to bring that back up, accentuate that a bit. Now you can see the one on the left, that is the removing the aged hide, and it's so much brighter, totally pops. It's more of a yellow than that dull orange the other one is, but you can see in those cracks, it definitely created the shading for me. So I'm a big fan now of aged hide as an undercoat for yellow. Now I want to try to do some highlights, I guess, on the fleshy gummy bits there. Hit some of those bulgy parts there in the mouth and around the edge of the lip thing there, edge of the mouth, like Termalian skin, however the hell you say that one. Words are hard, people. So that one's kind of a pinkish color. Maybe it's too close though, but that was something from Fanatics. I experimented a little mixing up some warped yellow with pink potion as well. Did that here on the green one with those colors, where I just kind of mixed my own flesh tone from yellow and pink. And there's plenty of Vallejo colors too. Like, gosh, I mean, these are pretty similar. I think this is the salmon rose, and basic skin tone. Those could be probably used to make a couple variations. This agate skin, well, that one's pretty close to the actual aged hide. I don't know. These, you can see how close some of these look color-wise, so there's not a huge variation there. I'll probably have to lighten them up with some white paint or something. I kind of just went through and tried to hit the tops of the bulgy bits. A few passes at adding some highlights, adding some depth, I guess, in there. 2 highlight passes is about the extent of my patience, and I just want these to have some basic table presence, breathe a little life into them. So that's pretty much my style and my attention span limitations these days. Decided to try some flesh wash as well after doing the highlights. Kind of bring things back down a little bit, give a little more color in the grooves there, tie it all together a little bit. And then for the teeth, I went back and did some brain matter beige and a little ice yellow to lighten those up. The intent there to be to color them something not aged hide. I did pallid bone on the green Shellback experiment, and that looked decent, but I wanted to incorporate more of the orange yellow into this mouth area, similar to kind of the photo from the video game. It has a lot of pinks and orange yellows and things going on, so I think in some way this just helps pull it together in my mind a little bit by adding those yellow teeth there into the mouth. And I had to re-hit the middle part there as well on this guy. Re-highlight that back up. Here's my, we'll call it, it's kind of got that Seattle Seahawks jersey green going on here. So we'll call this the Seahawk green shellback. And it was just Speedpaint 2.0 Ghillie Doo with Speedpaint medium and a 2-to-1 ratio. Ghillie Doo's another green color I really do like. Makes it kind of nice yellowish green color. Works good for, gosh, a lot of different monsters and fantasy. And for shellbacks too. I think this color would have been a nice, viable alternative if I hadn't got suckered in on the yellows and orange theme. I wanted to share this one since I did go through the effort of painting one up with it. There's kind of a side-by-side. You know, they both contrast well with the dark blue carapace colors. And for this one, I went with your more traditional kind of bony, pallid bone teeth. And I took the experiment one step further with the green one. I wanted to see if a blue wash would help at all. You know, just with the overall richness of the shell and the color. So pretty much put a glaze of that across the whole legs, the back carapace, you know, anything that was blue from the speed paint got a wash of blue as well, just to see what the effect would look like on this guy. And you can see it on the left there. I mean, it definitely made it a little darker. Maybe it cleaned up some of that shell, made it look a little more, I don't know, shiny, smooth, versus the one on the right looks a little more kind of battered, and that's I don't know. I guess it's probably just a taste preference thing. I stuck to the right side. I did not do blue wash on the others, but I think it looked decent either way. Verdict is still out. I also decided to throw some military shade wash on the green sides just to see what that would do as well, you know, and kind of give it a little more definition in those grooves and stuff. I decided to say these guys were in the azure weald, okay? There's a lot of purple, magentas, pinks, dark blue in the in-game and the game tiles as well. I just wanted to pick a biome and kind of roll with it, even though these guys apparently can show up in a few different missions, ice and other areas. So I started out doing like a dark blue ink. This was like an indigo colored ink, as you know, over some just basic little rock material I glued on there. This was just some no-name rocks I think I got out of my local brick and mortar Michael's. Used what I had on hand and experimented. Once those were dry, I went back and cleaned up the rocks with some white paint, and I did some kind of light dry brushing here and there on the material I painted on the bases as well, so that, you know, you still had dark blue here, but I wanted some spots of white so I could glaze back over with some of the pink colors and kind of create that, I don't know, just that color scheme of the azure weald. Yeah, we can pretend they're flowers or some sort of growth on the bases. You know, it gave it some interesting characteristics, I guess. I don't know if I'm sold on it either way versus just black and blue painted on ink, but it was an experiment. Again, for the rock, I went back with Gravelord Gray and to 2 parts of the medium, so real thin, just to kind of color up the rock a little bit, give it some texture, get those cracks, things colored in, but I didn't want it to be a white rock. Didn't feel like dry brushing this one with a bunch of layers like I did on some of the original Deep Rock models, so kept it simple. I hit the kind of those ridges on the feet as well with some Brain Matter Beige, because I decided I wanted to have some lighter contrasting brown there to kind of bring that out a little more. So I did that all the way around and then came back with some dark wood.
Goodbye, space lobster!
So here are my 3 final kind of shellbacks I went with, and we'll roll through some photos of them all here. The green one's pretty cool. I almost went that route, but in the end, something just called to me a little more about that dark blue with oranges and yellows. I don't know. Visually, that just pops in my eyes as well, especially once I did the trick to take off some of that aged hide on the sides and really make the zealot yellow pop out brighter. Then again, the green one had the pallid bone teeth versus just using zealot yellow for the teeth on the others. So that's it. That's episode 17. Hope that gives you some ideas. Looks like people are getting in their expansions and some of you are getting in your base game, so good times. Hopefully we'll have another episode here, and I'm going to try to keep getting them out every 1 to 2 weeks, but life is life and work and family is priority, so it'll happen when it happens, but they're coming. See you soon.